Welcome to the Small Group Leader Podcast, a podcast by small group leaders for small group leaders to be equipped and encouraged as they make disciples for Jesus. My name is Derek Lynn, and on this episode, we are talking about leadership rights. We will be speaking with Josh Moran, the former Chi Alpha District Director for the Potomac Network. Josh has some great convictions and insights on our rights and preferences as leaders working for the kingdom of God. We will also be sitting down with Connor Grubs, a small group leader at the University of Virginia, and we will hear from Connor about what it practically looks like to give up our rights and what can come from a life lived this way for the Lord. But first, let's listen to Josh Moran teaching at a SICM Leaders Conference on leadership rights.
So I have the distinct privilege of teaching this session. This session is called Leadership Rights. Some of you may be a little bit excited about that. We're going to go ahead and cut to the chase. The long and short of it is you have no rights. Yeah. See, you guys are like, well, we've felt the sarcasm all week from you. Well, nope, actually meant that one completely. At the top of your page, it says, "He must become greater, I must become less." That is a quote from John's Gospel, from John the Baptist, and that is what we are talking about today. That is what it's all about. That is what it's always going to be about. That the Christian life, that your life as a leader in Christian community, your life at your university is actually not about you at all. You must become less, and Jesus must become greater and greater, or else this thing is not going to work. You've learned a lot of great things. You've had a lot of great teaching. You've lived in great community. But it'll all be for naught if you think this thing is about you. It's not. Verse 27, to this John replied, "A person can receive only what is given them from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said I am not the Messiah, but am sent ahead of him. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it is now complete. He must become greater, and I must become less." So this morning, we're going to look at a leadership rights triangle. At the bottom, I want you to put rights, and on the side there, I want you to write leadership. Over the past year, or the past 2 years, 3 years, for some of you found yourselves at the bottom of the leadership rights triangle. You have been chased. People have pursued you. People have driven you everywhere. They have given up so much for you to be here. Some of them have given up financially for you to be here. Some of them have given you their car. They've drove you to the grocery store. They've spent countless hours making sure you had the right classes, because it was all about you, because you were at the bottom of the triangle where you had the most rights. And now what you see happening, the transition that is happening even now this week and as you continue as upperclassmen, is that as you move up the triangle, as your leadership increases, your rights decrease. You may think you have a better way. You may think you know how to do it better. You may think that you can be the exception, but that is not the case. The sermon series won't always be about you. The way the altar call goes won't always be to your preference. Philippians 2, 3, and 4 says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility. In humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." Yes, your pastor may repeat a sermon series that she has done before. But you know what? It's because it's not for you anymore. As you move up the triangle, it's for that friend that you have been pursuing, that you have been drawing, that you have been asking to come. And that sermon series would be about her and not about you. What I believe about this week is this week that you have had has been very special. You've lived in real community with one another. You've been through real devotional life. You embraced real responsibility on Wednesday as you went out and shared. And these are the things that make the Christian life vibrant. Now, as you embrace these three anchors of Chi Alpha, that your life will go better. It will be more joyful. It will be more whole. And you get to go on the adventure of a lifetime. And as you go further up and further into what the Lord would have for each and every one of you, as you continue to know Him, as you study His Word, as you spend time with Him in prayer, as you read good books, as you live in good community, as you tell others, as you proclaim the gospel to those who have not yet heard, your best years are ahead of you. But realize, as you move up in community, as you continue in community, as you move up the leadership rights triangle, your leadership increases and your rights continue to decrease. But hey, if you think you can do all this without Jesus, don't just move down the triangle. You're crazy. You have absolutely lost your mind. The task is too great to try to do it by ourselves. Let's be empowered people. Let's live the gospel out fully. And let's embrace our responsibility as leaders in our movement and make more disciples who would make more disciples.
It's so good to have you on the podcast, Josh. To kind of get into this, what rights seem to be particularly tough for small group leaders to die to?
Oh, man. Like right out of the gate, let me step on as many people's toes as possible. But as I look back over the last more than a decade in ministry, there are a couple that jump to the forefront. And so two that come to my mind immediately are time management, and specifically when it comes to dealing with old friends. And so as you begin to build a small group, it's like, well, man, I had so many good friends in my old small group, and now I'm building my new small group. And we know that one of the 6 wins of a small group leader is hanging out with small group outside of small group.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but I have all these friends that I made last year, and now I've got these new guys or girls that I'm trying to bring into relationship with each other, and finding the ability to thread that needle and to really focus on small group. And I think this is difficult when you live in a house with some of your best friends, and they're who you want to hang out with when you get home, but that freshman you just met doesn't have friends or doesn't have the right friends. And so dying to your right to be able to just have your own personal time with your friends, and to begin to bring your small group along into those, or if your best friend's also leading a small group, that you guys can go your separate ways and come back and meet each other when you're done hanging out with your small group. So I think that's particularly difficult. And then honestly, what mandatory things do you give up first? And so as people get involved on things on the college campus, everything feels mandatory, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is mandatory, that is mandatory. And too often what I've seen, in particular with leadership schedules and small group schedules, and I mean, this is a product of the American church right now, is that the church thing, the Chi Alpha thing, is always the least mandatory of the mandatory things.
Yeah.
Right? It's because the doctrine of grace, right? Well, they'll forgive me, or whatnot, or my the other group that I'm in is going to fine me if I'm not there. And it's like, well, we don't want to institute that type of structure in Chi Alpha, but it's like, okay, it's Friday afternoon, there's a leadership meeting happening. It's Sunday night, there's a leadership meeting happening, but I also have other responsibilities on campus that are also happening at the same time. And which one of those am I going to give up first? I think trying to flip that script, and that as you become a leader, as you die to those rights, as you move up the triangle, that there's this sense that it's like, oh man, my Chi Alpha responsibilities are going to have to be the more mandatory of the mandatory things.
So to what extent have you seen small group leaders give up things in order to lead their small group well?
Oh man, the list there is endless, right? I mean, I have considered small group leaders the heroes of the fellowship for so many years, that every time we have a baptism in Chi Alpha and the student gets into the tank and they they share a 1-minute testimony about everything that God has done in them and through them over the past little bit of their journey. And it's so much fun to watch them shout out their small group leader and be like,
Yeah.
man, my small group changed my life. Or when my small group leader like spoke to me, when she kept texting me, when she like brought me flowers, when he and I played racquetball, like that's when it really clicked. And like to see small group leaders over the years. And I do long for the day when someone in the baptism tank will say, oh, the staff member changed my life, but it just doesn't happen. Like the way that he exegeted John 4 just really did it for me. And it's like, well, you know, they're the ones on the front lines. Like they're the ones doing it day in, day out, night in and night out. And so I've seen them give up sleep. I've seen them give up study sessions. I've seen small group leaders miss out on huge basketball games or huge football games as, you know, Chi Alpha meets on that night and you have a Thursday night game in town, and like how much fun is college football on Thursday night, but service is still happening and so they choose to go. And then I think I've seen small group leaders, you know, give up the right to be able to just sit back and watch. Like there are some times where you just long to be able to walk into a room and be a wallflower. Yeah. And that's just something a small group leader has the ability to do. Like there are people for them to meet. There are connections that they want to make between small groups. There are hubs that they're trying to make webs. And there's this sense that, you know, they've given up that right. And so they put on their game face and they, you know, go into it. And some of us that are, you know, raging introverts, it's like, man, this is an act of the will, you know? Yeah. But small group leaders have done it day in and day out, and they end their college career tired but fruitful.
Yeah. Man, that's good. So I wanted to ask, was there ever a time that you didn't die to your rights as a leader and it ended up maybe costing you something or someone?
Well, I mean, I think you can look back on my entire undergraduate career and it would be instance after instance of times that I did not die to my own rights, times that I thought that I had earned something, and times that I thought that I deserved certain things. And
yeah.
I heard Matt Springer say once, if you ever find yourself saying the words, I deserve, and it's not followed by death, hell, and the grave, you're saying it incorrectly. And that has been a helpful mindset for me sometimes to kind of get back on track and to understand what I've given up. But I'll tell you one story. It's my 4th year at UVA, and we're going into leadership retreat, which is the mandatory retreat at the beginning of August. And it's to prepare our hearts and to prepare our hands for what the fall semester is going to be. I started leading small group my 2nd year and led a small group 2nd year and 3rd year, and was going to be leading the same small group my 4th year. And another guy had come up, and he and I were going to be co-leading together. He had never led before. And so we're preparing for leadership retreat. But the problem was I was really into adult slow pitch softball at the time. You know, the bright yellow ball, the 6 to 10 foot arc, and the team that I was traveling with at the time had qualified for the state tournament.
Oh, wow.
And the state tournament was the same time as leadership retreat. And so Derek, I can walk you to the place I was standing when I called Pete and told him I wasn't going to come.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, your co-leader has never done this before. This is about you guys connecting with each other. And I told him, I said, well, it feels like it's the same teaching every year. And so I don't need to go to that. I've already heard this. We'll be fine. It turns out we weren't fine. And probably because of the state of my own heart. And so my co-leader and I didn't get off on the right steps. Our group never clicked. And it was a year that was wasted from the very beginning because I thought I deserved something because I chose to view something else as more mandatory than disciple making. and being a part of the process that the team had built for us. And so I look back on that with deep regret. I can't change it now, but I hope that I can help other people see it more clearly.
Yeah, man. So also in your sermon, you mention what leaders do in moderation, followers will do in excess. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
You know, Paul talks about our freedoms in Christ, and that if that freedom causes someone else to stumble, then it'd be better just to give up that freedom than to hold on to it. And so I think that what we like to say is that like your small group will only burn as hot as you do. And the more on fire you are for the Lord, like the more on fire that they will be for the Lord, and they will follow with you. But that works in the positive, but it can also work in the negative. And that as we find ourselves embracing certain freedoms about things that we feel like we should be allowed to do, we set an example for younger believers that are not as mature as we are, and that they think that they can do certain things or act in a certain way or say certain words. And then it turns out to rot their soul. It turns out to lead them on a path of destruction, because they don't know when to stop. They don't know how to stop, because they have not grown in Christ, in Christ's likeness, in that way that we maybe think that we have.
Yeah. So looking at all of this now, why would you say we should choose to step into leadership and give up the ability to do whatever we want when the world is telling us to fight for that very right?
Yeah, this is the question of the hour, right? It's like, okay, those were like, softball sounds like fun. Having control of my class schedule sounds like fun. Being able to just hang out with the friends that I want sounds like fun. And I just want to, I don't remember who says it, and I wish I did right now, but like how pitiful it can be to sit in a circle and just stare at our own belly button and just think that this is all about ourselves. And I truly believe that this generation of college students wants to change the world in ways that other generations have not. And there is such a desire to see so many good things happen, such a desire for justice, such a desire for righteousness, and that as we step out of ourselves and step into true disciple making, that this is the way to change the world. There is no greater hope than the gospel. There is no greater hope than seeing students radically transformed, and that as we like really take this thing seriously, as we really get into the depths of this, that if we do this, we can see the world dramatically changed. Like I truly believe that the desire of my heart, the desire of God's hearts, the desire of every Caiaphan's heart should be for world domination. And that this is something that can happen. And we step into something so much bigger than ourselves when we get out of the way. For too long in my Christian walk, I allowed myself to be in the way of everything Jesus was doing in my own heart and everything Jesus wanted to do in the guys around me, and to step out of that and to allow God to do the work and to see him transform lives, and to make disciples who would make disciples who would make disciples who would make disciples, and to see this thing really take off. Like, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that?
I am getting to sit here now with Connor and talk to him. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing very well. So we're looking at this concept of leaders' rights in relation to small group leading, and I wanted to ask you, when you initially stepped into leading a small group, what were some of the first rights you realized you had to die to?
Yeah, I think, and this question's difficult because I'm not gonna lie, don't have a great remembering that. It was actually my craziest semester in college was that first semester I stepped into leadership. Probably partially because I was stepping into leadership. And so I don't have a great answer to that, but I can tell you that in the next couple months and then into my third and fourth year, what became the number one thing over time and time again is giving up the right to choose. And this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, or think they struggle with, giving up like the right to their own time. But I actually think that a lot of times as leaders, we understand the time commitments, but it's really like understanding that the choice that you have to make, that, you know, when a guy or a girl calls you and like, hey, I need you right now, like something's happened, or when there's an event you don't want to go to, or a meeting you don't want to go to, it's not about the time as much as it is like, you do not have a choice. You are a leader. You agreed to this, prioritize this kind of thing. And so I think that that's what really started to hit in, is that I was managing my time well. And so sometimes I was like, oh, I don't have time for this. Really, I do have time for this. I was in college.
Yeah.
College student, we have tons of time, right? So it's just making the choice that, hey, like every other college kid gets to choose what they do with their time. But as a leader, I give up that right. And I do it willingly, and I do it because I love what I do, and I love this organization, and I love the kingdom of God. And so because of that, like you give up your right to choose how you spend your Friday nights sometimes. And that's regardless of what all your other friends are doing who aren't in Chi Alpha, you know? And so that choice, and like I said, as a college student, like the idea that you get to choose and you have the freedom to pick your classes and pick what you're going to eat and what you're going to do on the weekends. But you do, as a leader, like absolutely are called to give that up, the right to choose what you are going to do and when you're going to do it in a lot of ways. And it's totally fulfilling, but it can definitely be challenging. And so I think that is something that I grew in every year of school. I've grown in that.
Yeah. Kind of on that same vein, I'm curious about this. So choosing and doing things that, like you said, other college students weren't necessarily choosing because they could do whatever they wanted. Were there ever times where some of the people you were around saw you making these other decisions and they were confused by it, and why don't you come with us to this? And if so, how did you handle situations? How did you respond to people who didn't understand you giving up the right to your time?
Yeah, I can, and I'll speak on behalf of my house. I lived with anywhere from 6 to 9 guys during college.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's really an adventure. We had this incredibly disgusting and run down and very cheap house that we lived in. But so I'm the small group leader, and then 2 and one time 3 of the other people I lived with were small group leaders. But the rest of the guys had loose to no involvement in Chi Alpha. They were Christian guys. Some of them had been Chi Alpha their first year and dropped out. We came to church with us, but loosely not in Chi Alpha. And so, you know, that's where it came. And that's really the circle I would run in, other than my small group and the leadership and people through Chi Alpha. All my other friends were through my house and connections like that. And so that would be the one that like really like, hey, do you want to go out to the corner for UVA is like where the bars are and where people hang out on the weekends. Hey, we're going to the corner. You want to come? And even as a leader, going there for me is not something I was super comfortable doing. And I think that's like a judgment call. But for me, I make the choice that, hey, like if someone sees me there, it could give the wrong impression. You know, things like that are reasons why I didn't kind of get into that scene, even when I am not really tempted by alcohol at all and knew I wouldn't struggle with the alcohol. It was more so like the image, which as a leader is like really important. And that's another thing you have to sacrifice. But I think the most important thing is, and this is even true in Chi Alpha, because if you think that everyone in Chi Alpha is going to understand the sacrifice leaders make, you are wrong. But so even in Chi Alpha circles, but definitely outside of, you have to surround yourself with people who love you and understand that, like, if you make a decision, you've thought through it and it's, you know, the right decision in that sense. So as far as like, if someone ever said something to me like, oh, that's so not cool, like, I'm in college, I do not have to spend time with that person. Like, I would say anyone in your life who is giving you a hard time over choices you're making as a leader because you want to love your people better, then that's not someone you need to have around you. And even if someone doesn't totally understand, they can still support you, right? Like, I had friends that weren't Christians who are like, yeah, like, I don't really get that, but also, like, if that's what you need to do, I understand that. And that's totally okay. Right. And, maybe that's even a way to, hey, like, let's talk about this more, that kind of thing. But, so yeah, I would say, like, if you are, as a leader, finding yourself people in your life who are giving you grief for decisions you are making to be a better leader, then those are probably people you just need to not run in the same circle with. And then that's even true in Chi Alpha, because I think sometimes, there are people in Chi Alpha who can give you grief for, like, certain decisions you make as a leader. And, like, hey, you probably need to have a real conversation with them about what it looks like to be obedient.
Man, yeah, that's really good. So earlier in the beginning, you talked about the people that helped you understand a little bit this concept before you started being a small group leader. I wanted to ask you, looking back, what did you see maybe from your small group leader or the UVA staff that helped model this for you?
Yeah, so I was really heavily influenced by one person my first year of college, and this person was my small group leader. He was one of three, and then I actually co-led with him my second year, and then we led a mission trip together, and I was his groomsman at his wedding last couple weeks ago, and he'll be my groomsman next week. So that's the power of awesome leadership. So this is a guy that really, in a way that, I think as someone who's not a leader, sometimes it can be hard to really understand what leaders give up. And I think that's like a huge part of why this is an important conversation to have, because it's not always super clear. But as a freshman first year, it was so clear to me that this guy was sacrificing so much to love me well. And I didn't have the easiest transition to college, mostly because I'm like really, really not outgoing. And so I don't it's not very bothersome for me to be alone a lot. So I just found myself always alone. I was like, dang, I should probably meet people. This was a guy that hey, I don't have to go out and meet people because this guy keeps knocking on my door and texting me to come hang out with him. And so just so much effort that he was putting into my life that I realized hey, I don't fully understand what he's giving up for this. As a leader now and his good friend, I do know what he gave up for that. But as a first year, I really didn't understand the full extent of what he was giving up. But I could tell that this is different. Normal 20-year-old guys don't pour this much into 18-year-old guys who sometimes don't text them back, right? And so I think I didn't fully understand it, but I felt that this was different and that I want that for other guys.
Thank you for listening to the Small Group Leader Podcast. Our goal is to equip and encourage you as you go out and make disciples who make disciples.